All right, if you're a licensed beauty pro in Kentucky, you're going to want to listen up. This is, no joke, your new survival guide. We're about to dive into a massive shift in state law that could literally change everything for your license, your salon, and your whole career. So, let's get right into it. Look, the stakes have never, ever been higher. And that's all thanks to some brand new changes in the law. A single, very specific kind of violation can now trigger an emergency order that forces you to lock your doors on the spot. Seriously, this isn't some scare tactic. It's the new reality for doing business in Kentucky. So you're probably asking, why is all this happening now? Well, a couple of new laws, Senate Bills 22 and 84, have totally changed the playing field. Regulatory scrutiny is through the roof. And that means knowing the law isn't just something for lawyers anymore. It's now a fundamental skill you have to just to stay in business.
To get through this, first you got to understand the board itself, the Kentucky Board of Cosmetology, or the KBC. Now, it's easy to look at the board and think that there's all-powerful giant, right? But that's not exactly true. Legally, they're what's called a creature of statute. It's just a fancy way of saying they can only do what the law specifically says they can do. They have to follow the rules too, and knowing those rules is where you get your power back.
Think of this power structure like a pyramid. At the very top, you have the statutes. These are the big laws from the legislature, kind of like the board's constitution. Underneath that, you have the regulations, which are the nitty-gritty rules the board makes to enforce those laws. But here's the real game changer, that third level, court review. Because of Senate Bill 84, courts don't have to just take the board's word for it anymore. A judge can actually look at a board decision and say, "Nope, I disagree," and overturn it. That means the board is not the final boss. So, knowing the board has limits is one thing, but how do you actually see what they're doing behind the scenes? Well, that brings us to transparency. And you have two absolute secret weapons in your toolkit, the Open Meetings and Open Records Acts. These laws are basically your key to unlocking the door and seeing exactly how the KBC is making its decision. So how do these actually work for you? Let's play this out. Say you get a fine in the mail. Using the Open Meetings Act, you can request the official minutes from the meeting where your fine was supposedly approved. If you check those minutes, and there's no record of the full board actually voting on it, well, that fine might not even be legal. And with the Open Records Act, you can get your hands on the inspector's original notes, the complaint files, basically all the evidence you need to build a defense. This is how you keep them honest. Okay, let's talk about the moment nobody wants to face. A formal complaint lands on your desk. It feels like the world is ending, I know, but there is a clear process, a playbook you can follow to get through it. The key is not to panic, it's to prepare. Okay, burn this number into your brain. 10. You have exactly 10 days to get your written response back after you get an initial complaint. That's it. If you blow past this deadline, the committee usually only hears their side of the story, and you can pretty much guess what happens next, a default recommendation of guilt. You cannot miss this deadline. Now here's a huge protection that's written right into the law. For most of the smaller stuff, simple sanitation issues, routine paperwork things, the board must give you a written warning notice first. They have to give you a chance to fix it before they can hit you with a fine. They can't just jump straight to the punishment for minor things. That's your legal right. And that brings us to a really powerful legal idea. It sounds fancy, but I promise it's your new best friend. Void ab initio. It's Latin for void from the beginning. So what does that mean? If the board fines you without giving you that warning they were legally required to give, or if that fine was never actually voted on by the board, that order can be declared a legal nothing. It's like it never even happened. And get this, if an order is void, you might even get a refund for fines you've already paid. All right, we've talked about your rights, your shield. Now we have to talk about the biggest risk out there, the one thing where there is absolutely zero tolerance. This is the dragon you have to slay, the one issue that can get your salon shut down like yesterday, using unlicensed people to perform professional services. And you have to understand the line here is not blurry. It is a razor-sharp, bright red line. Sure, your receptionist can schedule appointments, they can sweep the floors, but they absolutely cannot do any task that requires a license. And you might be surprised what that includes. In Kentucky, even just shampooing and rinsing hair or taking off old nail polish, that's considered part of the professional practice. It is strictly forbidden for anyone without a license. There's no gray area. And this is why it's a code red situation. The law, SB 22 to be specific, now legally defines the act of knowingly letting an unlicensed person perform services as an immediate and present danger to the public.
And that exact legal phrase, that's the trigger. That's what gives the KBC the power to issue an emergency order and shut your salon down instantly, without even having a hearing first. So, that was a lot of heavy stuff, I know, but knowledge is power, right? So let's turn all this information into a real, practical action plan. Let's talk about how you build a shield around your business to protect yourself every single day.
Okay, get your phone out, take a screenshot, whatever you need to do. This is your go-to checklist for any inspection. First, be proactive. Before anyone shows up, do an audit of all your posted licenses and double-check that your unlicensed staff are only doing what they're allowed to do. If an inspector does find a small problem, ask them this specific question. Is this a correction notice? Then fix it right there on the spot. Take a picture of the fix, and then, and this is the key part, submit written proof with that photo to the KBC within 10 days. That creates a paper trail proving you're on top of it.
So I want to leave you with this one question to think about. In the past, being great at what you do was enough. But in this new reality, you absolutely have to have both. Your amazing skill is what gets clients in the door, for sure. But a solid legal foundation, that's what's going to keep those doors open for a long, long time. Stay informed and stay protected.